This is Gerardo Del Real with Resource Stock Digest. Joining me today is the VP of Exploration for Q2 Metals, Mr. Neil McCallum. Neil, great to have you back on. How are you today?
Yeah, good. It's a great day. Lots of conversations with a lot of folks just to discuss the news that we just put out. So happy to expand on that today.
Well, let's get right into it. You just published an interval of 215.6 meters at 1.69% lithium, including a 64.6 meter interval at 2.29%. You have grade, you clearly have scale, you clearly have continuity. Can you provide some context on hole 18? And then can you provide some context on how hole 18 and 11 and 13 all kind of hold up together in regards to where they were drilled?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess it's important to explain that our understanding of the project evolves with every drill hole because we don't have a lot of surface exposure. And especially for holes like 21, there's virtually no outcrop above where we drilled. So our understanding is changing, and the orientation on the pegmatite the understanding is changing quite a bit too. So originally we thought east-west because that's what it looked like at surface, but now we're realizing that it's maybe more of a almost north-south trend, and that's taking us from holes 10, 11 down through 21, 18, and those are where we're seeing those larger, wider intervals. It's worth mentioning hole 21 has a continuous pegmatite interval of 347 meters. So that one is waiting to be reported on in terms of assays. We don't have those back yet, but looking forward to getting those out to market too, because that's really going to bolster the story in terms of these wider, larger intervals.
You mentioned the evolving nature of your understanding of Cisco. Where does it stand now from what you've seen in the core? And then I want to talk, of course, winter drill program, and then the potential for a first resource estimate. Somebody was asking. I thought it was a good question, which I had planned to ask as well.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. And that at this stage, it's too early to say when we're going to put a resource estimate out. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. Like, keep in mind, we only started working on this project in June of this year. So it's early days in terms of that. We're going to need to do some infill to do a resource estimate. We've thought about an exploration target, which we can do with very little information, but it's, the confidence is very low on that. So we don't really want to put something out where it's just hand waving at this point. We have only drilled so far roughly, a quarter or less of the entire surface area of what we've seen. That's an important piece. So, people have, arm waved, I think, on their own in terms of, putting back of the envelope potential resources out there. But keep in mind, like, we're only getting started, and it's going to be a very busy winter. We're going to be as aggressive as we can to get out there and just expand things, just to understand where this is going, how many more large intervals we can get along strike. And there's potential for parallel zones because it's a large area. Like I said, only a quarter of what we see on surface is at depth. So there's a lot of work to do.
I got to tell you, Neil, the potential for parallel zones, given the fact that a lot of this is undercover, excites the heck out of me, and it has to excite you and the team. What does a winter drill program look like?
Yeah, so at minimum, we're looking right now 2 drill rigs. We're going to be going from, we're going to try and get winter road access. So that might bring us into late January, early February, and we're going to be going to the end of April. So going to be quite a few solid months of just turning the drill and getting core and hopefully finding some more significant intervals.
There was a question on one of the chat boards asking why hole 17 assays are still pending and why it was resubmitted for testing. Can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, just kind of straightforward laboratory stuff where they need to make sure that they're reporting things that pass their standards. So whenever they're doing their work and whenever we're reviewing the results, we're comparing that against whether it's standard reference material that are inserted or blanks or duplicates. I'm not sure exactly what didn't pass in the lab, but they're making sure that they're reporting high quality results. So that's fine. We'll just put that out when we get it, and perhaps with the next batch of results, or maybe it'll be standalone. We'll wait and see when that comes in.
Excellent. And thanks to V Blue. He's the gentleman that went ahead and posted that question. So got to go back to hole 21. When we talk about 347.1 meters of continuous spodumene pegmatite, and we talk about the consistency of the grade thus far. The last interview that you and I did, we talked about how I anticipated, pretty similar grades because it's holding up really, really well. Have you, well, let me ask you a better question. Is all the core looking pretty similar to you when you're pulling this stuff out?
Yeah, exactly. It is looking very similar, especially in these larger, wider intervals. One of the great things that I think this project has is some of those larger intervals, like hole 18. It's higher grade than those narrower, 5 to 20 or 30 meter intervals. So we're quite happy to see that the grade is remaining high for those larger intervals, because that's going to help us when putting resources together. The obvious target will be to follow those large intervals. I mean, not to say that those, 30 meter intervals, those, on any other project, that would be a great drill intercept. But for us, that's kind of like a side thought right now.
It's funny. I remember having similar conversations early on with Patriot, right? Where most lithium companies would be thrilled to have 30 and 40 meter intervals. And, with Cisco, much like with Patriot early days, 30 and 40 meter intervals barely even get talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
Speak to me a bit about the metallurgical observations thus far. And I'm aware that, there hasn't been a lot of work done there, but with the size of the crystals and the way that the spodumene is looking, can you make any interpretations in regards to that?
Okay, yeah. I mean, this is all going to be preliminary. We haven't done all of the work that we need to do. When looking at the core, and we've published close-ups of a few intervals where, those spodumene crystals, they're not 1.5 meters like some projects, but that's fine. They are quite large enough to potentially be amenable to the low-cost processing out there. We're going to be verifying that. From what we can see so far, and some of the work that we've done is showing that it's dominantly spodumene, so that's a positive sign for us.
Excellent. Neil, everybody's anticipating assays. Looking forward to having you back. I'm hoping we have you back here in the next week or two. Anything to add to that?
No, yeah, like I said, we're going to get the results out as soon as we can, and it's going to be a very busy October, November telling the story.
Good stuff. Thanks for making time. Appreciate it as always.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Cheers. Bye now. Hey everybody, Gerardo Del Real here. If you're enjoying the content that you just saw, you can let us know in 3 simple steps. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and please share across your network and on social media. Take care, everybody.